Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Justin here from the Rise Up podcast. I am here with the one and only Jeremy Kasler. He's the CEO and founder of CaskX. It is a very unique business model that he has, and we're going to dive into that. It has to deal with whiskey and bourbon and investing. And it is like, as soon as I found him, I was like, I got to talk to this guy. But before we kind of dive in, I do have to kind of say this one. So I'm not a financial advisor. Jeremy is probably not a financial advisor. You invest at your own risk. I have to say that just so we don't get in trouble. So seek your professional advice. But anyway, let's dive into it. Jeremy, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
All right. So we're going to talk bourbon, whiskey, the fun stuff. But usually where I like to dive into is kind of like the 30,000 foot view. So give me a little bit of the backstory. What's your journey in entrepreneurship and investing? And then how did you end up in whiskey and bourbon in cask investments? Like such a unique business model. Give me how it all started.
I'll give you the shortened version because the longer version will be here for a few hours. Going back to about 2002, I was living in Singapore. I'd been kind of fairly transient all my life, working in property, mainly in investment property. And over the previous few years, I built up quite a nice wine collection. I've always enjoyed wine. I was buying more than I could drink, and I began to manage it in a way that I realised that I was actually making some money on many of the bottles. So that was obviously something that piqued my interest. I did some due diligence. I looked at a few businesses that were running wine investment companies. And I thought, well, what would I rather do in life? Would I rather sell wine or property? It was fairly obvious. I'd like to sell wine. So I set up a wine investment company in Singapore. But my timing was very good because that part of the world was just really transitioning at the time from drinking a lot of spirits to red wine, essentially. It became kind of de rigueur. And we set up the business there. We were selling beautiful wines to investors in Singapore. We were shipping the wines over, putting them into a lovely storage. And we created a really great business. And to fast track a little bit, around about 7 years later, I sold the business. And then I had a gap year, kind of a late gap year. I was in my 40s.
Hey, it's never too late, man. It's never too late.
I always thought a gap year is always better when you've got a little bit of money behind you.
Yeah.
A well-funded gap year, let's put it this way, which I spent in Asia. And I thought about the next business which I could be involved in. And the one business I couldn't be involved in was wine because of the agreement I had with the company that bought my previous company. So I very much enjoyed Chinese contemporary art. So I thought to myself, well, if I can sell wine over the phone, I think I can sell art over the phone for investment. So again, against all good advice, I spoke to a few galleries. They said it's impossible. We set up a Chinese contemporary art investment business, very similar business model to the wine business, but it was art, a passion investment. We created a tremendous business. I'll fast track a few years. In 2019, I sold that business. And here's getting back to your original question about whiskey, which I think is the important question. A couple of years before I sold the art business, I started fielding inquiries from alternative investors in Asia about whiskey. We'd like to invest in whiskey, mainly Scotch at the time. Again, that piqued my interest because I loved a glass of Scotch now and again on the weekend. And we did some more due diligence, and we kind of came to the conclusion that it's a similar business model. It's a passion investment that people love, particularly similar to wine in that as you store it and put it away, as long as it has good provenance and is correctly stored, regardless of market conditions, it will increase in value. So once I sold the art business, I could dedicate myself fully to the due diligence side. And we committed, right, we're going to start this whiskey business. The next question was, where do we start the business? Mm-hmm. And there were a number of whiskey investment companies already operating in the UK, and there were even a few in Asia. So I had a look around the world. I saw this big place called America that is a very wealthy place where lots of people love to drink whiskey. And there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't one whiskey investment company in the US. So we saw that as, as obviously a huge opportunity. And I think one of the advantages that I had was the ability to be transient, to kind of relocate or be happy to relocate. So we saw the opportunity, we opened the office, and the rest is history.
I know. It's like, and that started in 2019 or 2016.
We actually fully started in 2020.
Okay. Okay.
So in actual fact, I was in Los Angeles looking for office space in 2020. This was February, just going into March. And I don't need to tell you what happened in March 2020. I kind of scurried back to Australia to be with my family before the huge lockdown there. So we started the first office in Sydney. It actually worked out quite nicely for us because all our potential investors were at home picking the phone up.
Mm-hmm.
I had staff kind of all over the world, but they were also at home, not taking holidays or so on and so forth. So the first office was a great success in Sydney, in Australia. We were selling barrels of scotch for investment. I'll get into the technicalities a bit further on. We opened the next office in Hong Kong because I had a huge database of alternative investors there. And then in November 2020, finally been allowed to travel, and it was very onerous travel restrictions in Australia. I managed to get myself to Los Angeles, and we opened the office here.
Man, I tell you what, just hearing that, like your journey through that, I think one of the things that strikes me about when I talk to people who are that are successful entrepreneurs and in that journey through entrepreneurship, it's an up, down, backwards, forward, sideways, journey. But what always strikes me is that you mentioned it a couple times. It's you're listening. You're listening to what the market is telling you. You're listening to what, someone's like, hey, you should do this. And you're like, that's a good idea. I should probably do something about that, which is like, it always intrigues me that you didn't have it ironed out, right? I mean, that's the journey of business. You don't have to have everything figured out. You're trying to figure it out as you go. So now skip ahead. Like now we're, in 2025. You started in, only a few years ago. Where are you at now?
We've created a wonderful business. Like I said, we were the first company of our type in the US, which is very unusual because, a lot of good ideas start in the US and then are exported overseas. So it's quite unusual to bring what is already a successful business model, into the world's biggest market. We've expanded really rapidly. We were, I think the figures, according to the Inc. 5000, who is a company that sort of monitors the fast growth of businesses, we were I believe, the 17th fastest growing financial company in the US over the last 3 years.
Wow.
And we were the second fastest growing company in California. And I think SpaceX came in about 25. So we were very happy. We beat Elon on that one.
Well, that's just a true testament to the, the desire for spirits in the United States. And it's been, been around forever, right? And of course, Kentucky is the heart of bourbon country in America, but overseas it's, you have a little bit more flexibility, right? So Scotch has to be like, I know there's certain conditions with all that. You could probably, school me on all that. I'm a novice when it comes to it, but I do love it. It's very good. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, so what the area we're mainly in now, I should have said it's now bourbon, because when we first started, the market in the Australia was probably more suitable for Scotch, probably the same in Hong Kong, although that is changing quite quickly overseas. But when we first got here, we were offering Scotch whiskey barrels for investment. But of course, we were very quickly asked by our American clients in America, can we get American whiskey? So getting back to your point earlier, we listened, we reacted, and now 95% of what we do is in the bourbon market or American whiskey market here in the US, because why wouldn't it be? an American product for America.
So let's kind of there's kind of two sides of what you do, right? You have the distilleries that you're partnering with, and then you have the investors that invest in those casks and in with the distilleries. So describe to me on the distillery side. So when you're looking at bringing on, a particular bourbon maker in the United States, for example, what are you looking for? What's your ideal criteria on that front?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a key question. We have a research team of sorts, which I help with occasionally, and it's one of the more enjoyable parts of the job.
That'd be a great job.
Yeah, Kentucky, Tennessee, various other places, and drink lots of whiskey. So we treat this as almost if we were a stockbroker looking at a company.
Mm.
We don't just look at the product that they make, although the product that they make is very, very important. So, of course, that's the first box we tick. Do they make really good bourbon? Answers yes. Okay, we've narrowed it down a little bit. Then we look at the people behind the product. So we look at the team involved in the same way that you look at a CEO of a steel company that you might want to invest in. You might look at the team and their background, their experience. You might look at the marketing they do. So we treat it on a very financial basis. The fact that I might prefer this whiskey to this whiskey on a personal basis is largely irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no difference. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
we move away from that. What we look at is it a wonderful team? Do they have a good track record? Do they look like they're kind of expanding, not just within the US, but more importantly, internationally? So there's a number of factors we look at. Like I say, just like if we were a stockbroker looking to invest into a steel company.
That's amazing. So, okay. So as you're continuing kind of developing that side, right, then you have the other side, which are the investors. So describe to me the type of clients or collectors that most resonate with CaskX.
Yeah, again, I think it would be lovely if most of our investors didn't drink whiskey, because that would open up our potential even further. But most of them do. It's seen as a marriage between their love of whiskey and everybody's enjoyment in making money. So it's an area where, of course, when they invest, we provide things like VIP tours. We take them to the distillery. They can meet the actual team behind it, and that's the really satisfying part of the job that we do, because these barrels are real. The liquid is real.
Mm-hmm.
The people behind it are real. This is not like a crypto where no one's even sure what it is or where it is.
Or
So
like robots going off doing whatever. Yeah. These are real people
yeah,
making this stuff. Yeah.
no, exactly. And it's more than just getting a piece of paper in the mail or an email to say like you own something. So the investors, they are whiskey lovers, in answer to your question. Generally, I would say, yeah, in the late 90s, percentage wise, they are accredited investors in all cases, because the SEC considers what we offer as a security, which is a good thing, because it gives that layer of protection to investors. We have a lot of rules and regulations we have to stick to. And yeah, it's a marriage of, it's a passion investment. We're not suggesting that anybody should put 100% of their portfolio into barrels of whiskey, but it is a great hedge against inflation. It's a great hedge against different market fluctuations. Barrels of new make whiskey, and when we say new make, these are freshly filled. So it's going into the barrel. It's like a clear liquid from day one. We include 8 years of storage and insurance. So once you've invested into those barrels, there's no, it's kind of like a hands-off investment in terms of you don't need to,
Just
pay
let
a
it do its
fee or
thing. Yeah.
let it do its thing. So it's one of the very few assets that you can invest into that will increase in value regardless of market conditions. So if in 8 years' time, there's the same amount of buyers, the same amount of sellers, nothing's changed, that asset will be more valuable, because it's very different day one than it is day 8.
Right.
And as every night, every morning you wake up, it's a little bit more valuable.
Yeah. Do you keep things beyond 8 years?
In some cases, yeah. I mean, we
Okay.
include 80s insurance,
Okay.
but there is a limit. You can age bourbon practically probably 15 years, I think. Yeah, maybe there are some Puppy Van Winkles aged for 25 years. It's not like Scotch. I've got this bottle behind me is 72-year-old. Yeah, there's not many of those around, so we keep that under lock
Yeah.
and key normally. We're showing it off for the podcast.
Yeah.
Again, you can age further than that, but we see the sweet spot around about 8 years. It's a good age for bourbon. The bourbon market itself has changed over the last few years. It's following the Scotch market, where previously in Scotch, 20 years ago, nobody drank single malt, almost nobody. It wasn't really a thing, and nobody really looked for age statements. You buy a bottle of Bell's or one of those kind of generic Scotch brands. Bourbon, now with Scotch, people, everyone looks at the age. The first thing that people look at on the shelf is how old is it, before even the brand.
Yeah.
So they're very age driven. Bourbon is following a similar path where, 5 years, 10 years ago, Jack Daniels and Coke, that was it. Or they bought bottles of generic Jack Jim Beam. Now there are more distilleries, the quality has gone up. People are much more discerning. There's premiumization. So people are spending more on single bottles. But now people are looking at age statements as well. And that was never a thing with bourbon previously. But you'll see more and more that people go, well, how long's it been aged for?
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that, normally speaking, the older it is, the better it is.
Better it is. Yeah.
They did try, been a few mad scientists who tried to fast track the aging process with thankfully horrible results. So unfortunately, the only way you're going to get an 8-year-old bourbon right now is to wait 8 years.
Wait 8 years. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the
That's
whole
the only
point of it, right? And if I could tell you, if nobody's ever had like good bourbon before, there is a difference. I mean, there is a vast difference.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. I mean, I'm a way beginner as probably compared to you and your experience, but because I've only been drinking bourbon for the last couple of years, and I'm still kind of working my way through it. Like, what's my palate and all that. But because I started I like kind of where you began is like wine, like red wine and all that. But, as I'm getting older, I'm like, bourbon's pretty good.
There you go.
So,
It comes with age.
and Scotch too. Scotch is really good too. There's some really good
Yeah.
scotches. So,
Yeah.
so as of now, are there any other competitors in the space, or are you still the lone wolf?
No, there's one or two other businesses that run not the same business model, but a similar business model. There's one or two funds out there, so you can invest into a fund, which is great. And for some people, that suits them better. But we love the fact that you've got control of your barrels. You own those barrels. They've got your name on them. You can legally sell them after 1 year. You have to hold 1 year at least. Of course, we don't encourage anybody to invest and then sell after 1 year because you're probably not going to make any money. But you own those barrels, and if you want to, some of our clients they'll buy 50 barrels. They'll trade out 49 and they'll bottle one for themselves. So they'll create, their own little brand. They'll have the name on it, Jeremy's Finest Bourbon, picture
Are
of
you
their daughter,
serious?
or picture of their dog. Yeah, so, it's a small part of the profits, but you've made plenty of money on the 49 and you've got your own bourbon brand. So it's kind of a win-win.
Man, dude, you're speaking my language, man. That'd be so awesome. Have your own bourbon. Like, hey, this is mine. Aged eight
I'll put
years.
you after the podcast.
Yeah. So is that would you say, is it fair to assess that that's what makes CaskX unique is, or kind of separates you from the other, if you call them kind of adjacent or even players in the space, that the whoever invests with you and within those distilleries, that they have that flexibility? Is that the biggest differentiator?
I believe so, yeah. And I think also although what we offer is a financial product, let's get this right. That nobody is giving us money because they just like, to look at barrels of whiskey. They're doing it to make money. But what we really appreciate is that it's more than just that. The people are investing with us because they really want to be part of the process. They come to Kentucky, they stir the corn, they try the mash bill, they speak to these wonderful people, very hospitable, lovely Kentucky or Tennessee people, and they see their barrels lined up, and it's a real moment. I've been with clients when they've talked on the phone, we've sent them emails, they've seen some lovely pictures of distilleries, but when they see those barrels piled up for the first time, it really is a moment. You can see their cheeks go a bit flushed and pupils dilate, and
Yeah.
so I think that's what separates us. That we don't treat this as just a financial transaction. This is about making money, but we feel that at least 50% of it should be about the love of the product themselves and having some enjoyment with it. We have get-togethers, we have VIP tastings. We had a huge event at Jackson Purchase, which is one of our distilleries in Kentucky earlier in the year. People meet other like-minded people, and great friendships
Get to
came from
talk
it.
shop, get to talk bourbon, get to hang out. Oh, man.
What could be better?
Dude, you've created like the best business model ever, man. I'm totally jealous.
I can't even argue, but yeah, no, thank you.
Man, I'll get into specifics in a minute, but let's kind of stick to the industry right now, kind of keep us on track as much as possible. So, what are you seeing in the industry right now? What shifts are happening?
I think that the distilleries in general, and this is both large and small, have always been very comfortable in the fact that the main market, apart from Jim Beam or so on and so forth, the billion-dollar companies, but their main market has been the US. And of course, the US will always be the biggest market for bourbon, no doubt. We've probably reached peak bourbon in the US. There's probably no more space for new distilleries, and we're not going to be drinking so much more. I think people are actually drinking less, but they're actually drinking more expensive. So in terms of revenue, the figures are up, but in actual consumption, generation, I'm not even sure that young people are drinking less than they were back in our day, let's say. The massively important shift is for the middle size and even smaller companies to start focusing on exports.
Mm.
Market overseas is huge because although there'll never be one country that drinks as much bourbon as America, you add a few of them together and they drink a lot more. I'll give you a perfect example. India, 50% of all the whiskey drunk on the planet every year is drunk in India, believe it or not. But it dwarfs the US in terms of whiskey consumption. So right now, they don't drink that much bourbon. They drink essentially 90% is Indian made single malt. And they actually make some very good whiskey in India.
Haven't had any.
Yeah, I've actually tried it. Surprisingly good. They win lots of awards and so on and so forth. So now a lot of the middle class Indian drinkers are transitioning to Scotch. As they transition to Scotch, they're becoming a little bit more adventurous. Now they're drinking bourbon.
Mm.
One of the great assets that we started producing in the US is American single malt as well, which dovetails beautifully into those markets because they already love single malt and they would love to try American single malt. Something that we are helping to promote, actually going to be opening an office in Mumbai later in the year, believe it or not, is the international markets because there's 8.5 billion people, potential customers outside the US that could be drinking bourbon every day.
I never would have thought India, like of all places. Never would have thought.
Huge.
Wow. I was in Italy last year and I was at a bar, and I was like, "What kind of bourbon do you have?" And they have like one. I was like, well, I had Jack Daniels. I was like, okay, that's not my favorite, but and then they have Scotch, but they had nothing there. But I remember them saying, we want more of it. We just don't know where to get it, like in it. And I was like, well, you should get more of it because it's good stuff.
Well, I travel a lot, I'm in Europe a lot. You should probably tell, I'm from England. My wife's Swedish. And I'm very keyed into bourbon lists because obviously it's what I do. 5, 10 years ago, all you could find was Jack Daniels or Jim Beam. That was literally all you could find. Now there's specific bourbon bars opening up in the UK, in Asia, in Europe. These bars, all they sell is bourbon. A lot of the bourbon lists now, if I go to a nice restaurant or a decent bar, of course I'll say, can I see a whiskey list? And what was a handful of, 3 or 4 or 5 bourbons, now 20, 30, 40. So it's becoming more and more prevalent, no question whatsoever. People are becoming internationally more picky. They don't see bourbon as just a mixer. And I think maybe Pappy Van Winkle's had a lot to do with this as well, that people go, right, so you can spend $10,000 on a bottle of bourbon. I didn't realise it was possible. And I think that's helping drag some of the other brands up in terms of perception as well.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's cool to see because when I go to Europe, I go every year or two, spend quite a bit of time over there. And it's just like I have been seeing it because it was kind of like what I was seeing was, okay, the beer craft, because, you got a lot of wine, you got a lot of that, which is really great. But they're like, we want something other than wine. So they're like, the craft beer scene is starting to, take root. And then now you're starting to see the whiskey and the more of those kind of liquors taking hold, which is really great because it makes it great when I travel, like, opens my eyes to other things that I haven't seen before and what all that. But
more choice.
Yeah.
What choice is better?
So kind of on the global market of, bourbon and whiskey and everything you're kind of exposed to, what's getting the most of your attention these days? I mean, are tariffs kind of playing into stuff? Is global economy stuff playing into it? Like what's kind of keeping you up at night?
I think, obviously there's been a lot of talk about tariffs, but I think, the word tariff is almost like clickbait. I think the press love it. It's always a good story. There's always something, political opinion behind it. What we've noticed is that, for example, Hong Kong has reduced tariffs down to 0 on whiskey. India reduced, they knocked 50% off their tariffs. They were very high, admittedly. They were 150%.
Wow. Okay.
But they've reduced those down to 100%. Now, that's a big difference. So I think the whole thing with tariffs, of course it's important. And of course it's relevant to the industry. But in our opinion, there seems to be a lot of negative press, but no one ever hears the good news. So again, what we try and do is we try and, promote bourbon in a good way. And we were the first people to promote the fact that there's no tariffs now in Hong Kong, which is the gateway to China.
Yeah.
And they drink plenty of whiskey as well, by the way. Maybe not as much as India per capita, but they're pretty heavy consumers. So it's something that we think should be talked about more. Don't just promote the bad news, promote the good news as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the kind of the negative overtakes the good stuff in the world, right?
People like to click on the negative stuff. They don't want to click on the good stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's sad. The sad part of humanity and the world we live in, apparently, these days. Kind of with the advent of AI, well, it's been around for a little while, but really, it's here to stay. It's impacting into, going to be permeating into our lives in many ways. How has AI impacted what you're doing? And then are you using it in the way you promote CaskX, or how are you using it?
Of course, we embrace technology, but what we're careful about is just embracing the new technology buzzword. I've seen so many companies, even in the whiskey investment market, rolling out this amazing technology, and I'm like, right, how does that actually benefit the investor? I'm trying to work it out. I'm in the business and I can't quite work it out, but it makes a good headline like NFT or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So what we look at and what we enjoy talking to the distilleries about is how they use it. So I think that's more relevant. Of course, we have a very sophisticated back office. We have usernames and logins for the clients so they can see when they bought their whiskey, who their broker is, almost like a trading site for a stock of that standard. But where I think AI whiskey is going to be very interesting is in the storage component, because whiskey's been stored in the same way for 800 years, and the reason it's been stored the same way is because it's a good way.
Mhm.
It's like a good.
It's worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see a book that's still selling after 400 years, or like Treasure Island, it's probably a good book.
Yeah.
People are still buying it. So if it's working, you don't need to fix it. But of course, you can improve it. And I think the AI technology, what that will allow is to look at the whiskies themselves, where they are in the rick house, because different parts of the rick house, the whiskey will age in slightly different ways. If it's at the top, it'll age slightly quicker, the bottom lower. It could be just a side door that lets a draft in. There's a million components that goes up to make these molecules that we end up drinking that are a great whiskey. I believe, and without being, the inventor of the technology, that they're already using AI to a degree, but there's so much more to go where you could have little robots going around the rick house, getting in amongst the barrels, which right now, if you want to go and, try the whiskey from a barrel, you might have to move 15 barrels out the way. So I think that part of it will really increase the benefits to the consumer. It will help the aging process, and it will just help to create a better product at a better price.
Right. AKA a better result for the investors, right?
Absolutely.
Like everyone wins.
Win, win, win. Yeah, there is some technology that everybody wins.
Yeah. That's a great one. Are you using, I mean, do you happen to know how are you using it in kind of like your outreach? Like how are you getting investors? Are you using AI in particular for that? Are you
We use the most traditional approach we use was referrals.
okay?
Frank speaking to Pete at the golf club
Yeah.
created a very good story. We do a lot of events. So we're at the Bardstown Bourbon Festival, where we're going to meet literally, I think there's like 10 or 15,000 people attend that event. And I would dare say everybody's going to come to our stand because we have a Wheel of Fortune where you can, each thing is to win a sip, and one of them's a Pappy Van Winkle or Blanton's or something really special. So we tend to have the longest queue at the whole Bourbon Festival.
Get a little sip.
And we use, I won't call this traditional approach, but the traditional tech approach of just lots of Google ads and just very broad marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But the most effective way is the way that this worked for thousands of years. And it's one person saying to someone else, look, they've dealt with this company, they think they're really good.
Yeah.
Why don't you get in touch with them? So we're kind of old school in some areas, and that's the most effective way. The least cost and the most effective way to bring on new clients.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing better than that, right? I mean, when you have somebody who's worked with you and who's invested with you and who knows you and has been through that process like you described, where they've been to Kentucky and they're meeting these distillery owners and the makers and and they're like, you need to be a part of this. That's there's nothing. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, there's no way you could beat that. So, well, I kind of shifting gears just a little bit. What's been one of the biggest wins that you've had so far this year? Like an exciting win that you've had?
I think it was the ability to now allow our investors to use their 401k or their IRA. But up to that point, we had a number of conversations with custodians, who are the companies that help you to facilitate those investments. And we had a lot of pushback, and we kind of gave up. We thought, well, it can't be done. And then one of our clients said, guess what? I've just got the go ahead from my custodian to make this investment. And we're like, okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Nice.
Yes. It now allows, as I say, our investors to not just use their private funds, but to use their 401k and their IRA as well. And that's helped to take us to the next level, because of course the idea of would you like to buy whiskey with your IRA is very appealing to a number of people.
That means I need to have a talk with my financial advisor about this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I just had a chat with this company. They're pretty awesome, you know. All right. Well, cool. I mean, that's exciting. I mean, who would have thought, right? I mean,
Yeah, we didn't think it was possible, but now that we know it is, that again we've kind of forged a path. It was, a lot of challenges in being the first business of our type in the US. I had no idea how challenging that the legal environment is in the US. It's the most challenging on the planet. I've done business in so many different countries.
of course.
You
Yeah.
have to fight your way through with a team of lawyers behind you and create that path. There's always a route.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
just a very expensive lawyer route. But once
Yeah.
the route is made, then you're good. But it does take it. There's a lot of mistakes and sideways steps and backward steps. But yeah, you get there eventually.
Did you know that? I mean, did you have any inkling it would be that challenging when you started?
No, I didn't. No, I thought it would be the
Okay.
opposite. I just had this. I'd never done business in America. I'd come on holiday to Las Vegas and Miami, and I had a lovely time. And I always assumed that the US would be the least bureaucratic and the most business friendly. And it's almost turned out the opposite. Now, in a good way, because there's so many rules and regulations that don't apply in other parts of the world. And these are good because it's for the protection of the consumer
Yeah.
ultimately. But I had no idea how many hoops you have to jump through just to do something that's fairly straightforward. And particularly when it's an investment company, and this investment has never been offered to the US market before.
Mm.
You can imagine the complexities. And I've had Zoom meetings with 8 lawyers at the same time, and I've got no idea what any of them are talking about. And all you see is a bill at the end of it, and you're like,
Can I do this or not?
so it takes a lot of, there's a lot of doubt along the way. There's sometimes you feel, is this too difficult? Is it too challenging? So it just takes a lot of motivation to push through and say, no, we can do this. But to be the first is always the most difficult. But again, hopefully we reap the benefits of being the first because we're the most established and biggest whiskey company in America.
So can you speak to that just a bit more? Because I think it's something you're tapping into that a lot of people don't quite understand sometimes, or they forget, which is if you can go back to one of those moments where you're like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Like, is this worth it? And it doesn't feel like you're moving forward. It doesn't feel like, the cards are, playing in your favor. Go back to that if you can. What were you, how do you get through that? How did you get through that?
I think, some of the biggest moments of doubt came in some of those meetings that I was just referring to. And honestly, I had no idea what they were talking about. There was 8 people all chiming in, and some of it was accountants meetings, some of it was legal meetings. But my strength is not in these kind of details. My strength is in, being a very positive, good salesperson, being transient, able to start new businesses in new areas, looking at opportunities. And I was getting bogged down in all these details that I really didn't understand. It got to a point where I thought, am I just going around in circles? Is this going to happen? And I've just thought, look, the only way to find out is to try. There was times when even the lawyer said, look, this can't be done. Sorry, the answer's no. And then you seek another opinion. And then you get another one until you find the opinion that you like.
Mhm.
You have to see 4 doctors and go, okay.
Yeah.
But I think the most challenging thing is putting your faith in, I don't want to say just lawyers, but people that you're paying, not really understanding what they're talking about most of the time, with the idea that they're going to help you drive your business forward. At times you're like, are these people just taking the money just because they want to take the money, or are they really, helping them move forward? There's a lot of self doubt with that, a lot of doubt about not just self, but lots of people that you're working with. But I think ultimately, you have to find people that you trust.
Mm.
I think that in your kind of inner circle, There has to be 100% trust. And even if you're not sure what they're talking about, you let them get on with it.
Yeah, you're trusting the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're trusting the process. And quite often, and we did it, you'll go down a route that could be hugely time consuming, hugely expensive, and you reach a dead end. And it's very easy to go, oh, this is impossible. But you've got to just backtrack, start from the beginning, and take a different route. And you've got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, type of thing.
Yeah, and know when to toss back a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah. Well, you've got to think so. Don't let ego get in the way of a good or bad decision. And say, look, this is just not working. So forget it. I don't care what I've spent. I don't care how much time I put into it. We're going to start again and go a different route. And eventually, it's possible. And that's what we found, that after lots of kind of not issues, but false starts and going down a route, committing to that route, and then having to backtrack and start again. It takes a lot of faith in those around you and faith in yourself. Kind of see in the future, saying, look, if we can crack this nut, this will be a wonderful business. It'll be wonderful for the clients. It will be great for us, and it's great for the distilleries. So we always had that kind of motivation. We're not finished yet, but I feel like we're certainly moving down that path.
So is it fair to say that it's just having that belief, right, that you can do it?
Yeah, I think so, and being prepared to fail, because
You're gonna.
I don't care who you are. The bigger the businessman, the more failures they've had. There may be the odd tech billionaire who was at university and had a great idea, but even those guys have gone down plenty of routes once they've made their money and lost a few billion. So I think it's if you can take the ego out of it and just look at it for what it is and make the decisions based on, we gave it a shot, it didn't work out, okay, we go again, get back on the horse.
Yeah. You remind me of something. I heard a quote one time. Do you know who Tony Robbins is? He's like a big.
Of course, yeah.
So I know his son, and so I was able to go to an event, and he said something that just stuck with me, and it's very specific to what we're talking about, which is in the journey of entrepreneurship, people hit a wall, right? You're hitting a wall in your journey. And most people, what sets like you, for example, apart from other people and why you're successful or on the journey of being uber successful is that people hit that wall and they just don't look hard enough. They just think, oh, there's only two options here. They don't think, oh, I can go under this wall. I can go around this wall. I can put a hole through this wall. You just have to look hard enough and you'll find the option to get there. You'll find it. And it's exactly what you just said. Like you had to backtrack. You had to go backwards, I call it pivoting. You have to pivot. Well, okay, this isn't quite working. We got to go this way.
No, you're exactly right. There's always a way. I think that's why you have to be careful about, advice you're given. Again, I was talking about legal advice where they'll say, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And I kind of, I'll get to where I want to be, then I'll work backwards. So I'll say, right, this is what we're going to do. Okay, let's just work backwards from there. And I think that's sometimes the best approach, rather than just
reverse engineer.
Going, okay, it's a bit like golf players. They envisage the ball in the hole, and then they kind of work backwards. Although that actually doesn't work for me. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, it's having the determination, the willpower, but just being a little bit more creative than those people around you sometimes. And say, look, let's try that. And okay, let's give it a go.
Cool. So kind of pivoting here just a bit. What kind of marketing channels are working well for you? And then which ones are you want to dial in, over the next 6-12 months? I know that you do a lot of referrals, you do a lot of events. Is there anything outside of that that's working well for you? Or if you're like, hey, we've seen opportunity here that we haven't really tapped into yet.
We do a number of newsletters. So We partner with financial or lifestyle publications. We send newsletters out that way. Again, with the kind of, also, let's say, social media marketing, the Facebook, the Google ads, what we love about it, and there's a reason why those companies are so successful. But what we love is that you can turn the tap on and you can turn the tap off. So you can, most forms of marketing, you're kind of throwing money at it, hoping it's going to work. And, if you do 10 events, 3 might be fruitful. The other 7, you're not making anything. But you have to do another 10 events to find the 3. So, what we do love about, your Facebook, your Google, your YouTube marketing is it is very targeted. So a lot of what we do is in that area. And if we want to speak to more people, we'll turn the tap on a bit more. If you want to speak to less people, for whatever reason, we'll turn the tap down. So, yeah, I think I would hope that as AI kicks into place and as these tech companies become even more tech driven, that they will be allowed to be even more targeted and more efficient, because it suits them. If we're with lots of clients, that's good business for them, because of course we'll spend more money. So I think that in the future, I'm assuming with AI, that will allow us to engage with more people. And of course, that's all we want to do is put ourselves in front of people and say, look, this is what we do. You can have all the computers, all the AI. What this is about is barrels of whiskey that are real, and that people can go and visit.
Yeah. Okay. What does the next evolution of CaskX look like?
Like I said earlier, we're looking heavily at the international market. We've got offices in Hong Kong, in Sydney, in the UK. We are currently speaking to our Indian lawyers.
Going through that process again, that sounds like fun.
It's actually more fun. I'm not going to disparage US lawyers, but I find them a little bit easier to work with, I'll be honest.
Okay.
But we're setting up our Mumbai office. So, we feel that certainly in these international markets, that people would love to invest into what is essentially US security. So whether it's in Mumbai, whether it's in London, whether it's in Hong Kong, the US carries a level of authenticity and trust that people like, of course. People like to invest using the US dollar, as always, and they like to invest into something in the US that's real. Again, this is a great benefit for the distilleries, because if we speak to 1,000 people a week, let's say, which would be a normal week, and we tell them how the business works and so on and so forth, well, only a handful of those will invest. But the 900 and so that didn't invest have now been given a great insight into a certain distillery, or bourbon, or so on and so forth. So next time they're in the liquor store, they'll see a bottle of Bardstown bourbon, which is something that we may have been talking about, and they'll probably buy it. So it's we're sort of investing heavily into our international presence, and we feel it's a great thing for the distilleries as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, you just mentioned, if they don't really particularly choose to invest with you, for any particular reason, they're still supporting the distilleries, right? In the end. I mean, maybe on a much smaller scale, but they're still doing it, right?
Absolutely. No, that's right. And, they say that, I think the odds are, if somebody picks up a bottle of bourbon, or a bottle of wine or whiskey in the liquor store, if they actually pick it up, there's a 50% chance they'll buy it. And just by us promoting these particular distilleries, people say it. Oh, I know that. I know the story behind it. I know the team. I know the corn they use. They'll probably remember a number of facts, and there's a very good chance they'll buy it. So it's almost it's kind of an invisible win that the distilleries are very aware of, because of course we're buying barrels from them, but we're speaking to 1,000, let's say high net worth individuals every week that have good spending power. So they're good. They're happy.
That's awesome. So if you could, I have a few more questions for you. If you can wave kind of a metaphorical magic wand in your business and fix one thing, what would that be?
I could fix one thing in this industry. So when you say one thing, one fault.
Yeah, just one thing, like one thing in your business. What would that be?
I'd like to speak to a lot more people a lot quicker. We're inhibited by the amount of people that we can get the message out across to, because the vast majority of Americans are not familiar with whiskey investment.
Mm.
We could roll it out in a different way. We could, put billboards on Sunset Strip and a plane's
All
flying.
that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, TV adverts during the Super Bowl. Not that we could afford that, but yeah, at some point. But it would be lovely to get the message out to so many more people, because we've spoke to a tiny slither of the US population, and the response has been magnificent. It really has. Even if people haven't bought, they do, they enjoy it and they love what we do. So it would be lovely to get on a Zoom with 350 million people, and you're helping a little bit in your own small way, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to speak to everyone in America, tell them what we do, and they can say, look, I'm not interested one bit, or that's great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we're talking. Cause I mean, as soon as I learned about what you do, I was like, we need to talk. That's pretty amazing. Like, it's an amazing thing that you've developed, and, and continue to develop and getting the word out about it. If I can help in any sort of way doing that, then great.
Wonderful.
So, because it's, you're doing a great thing, and, and I look at it as a win-win all the way around. I mean, the investors, you win, the distilleries win, people who consume win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. I mean, how can you argue that? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, a couple reflective questions, and I'll have a couple fun ones, and then we'll wrap up. Looking back, your entrepreneurship journey, if you could give your younger self, one piece of business advice, what would that be?
I think it would be to focus on one thing at a time. You're better off doing one thing really well than you are 10 things diluted not so well. And I think when you have this kind of entrepreneurial brain and this kind of business type brain from an early age, you've got so many ideas and you think you can do everything at once. And you think, right, well, if I have these 5 businesses, I'm going to make 5 times more money. I'm going to
No.
my billion things, And of course, it's not. It doesn't work like that. And what you learn over time is that just do one thing really well. You don't need to be, the jack of all trades. You just need to be the master at one. So focus on your core business. Don't worry about other people in related businesses making lots of money or running successful businesses. You don't need to look over the golden wall. Focus on what you're doing and be the best in class on the business that you're running.
Mm-hmm. With kind of tacking onto that, what is one thing if somebody's listening to this or watching this today, what is the one hope that they walk away from hearing your journey?
Yeah. Well, I hope that they become a client of CaskX. I think that's the obvious thing.
Yeah.
That's my initial quick instinct. I hope that people can take something from this, and maybe learn from some of my experiences, some of the lessons that I've learned myself. The wonderful thing about America is it's a truly entrepreneurial environment, and almost everybody in America would like to be a business person. I see that as a good thing. I'm not political at all. I've got no political feelings, but I'm vote business. And if people, which they are motivated in America, and there's so many good role models here to learn from that will share their stories, share their success as well. I think that if anyone can take just one small thing from this, then yeah, I'd be very happy.
That's awesome. So I got 2 kind of fun ones. The first one is, and this should be a very quick answer for you, hopefully. What's your bourbon of choice? What's your favorite distillery you're drinking from this week?
I'm going to give you two answers to that.
Okay.
I'm going to give you my favourite distillery would be Pappy Van Winkle, but
Happy.
it's prohibitively expensive, so it's not something that you just have on a weekend. It's a special occasion drop. I think my favourite distillery right now would be Bardstown. I really love what they do. I think when you visit distilleries and again meet the team, you develop even more of a passion and a love for the final product. It's a bit like if you go to a vineyard in Tuscany. When you're drinking that wine, you're loving it. The sun's setting and someone's playing the violin or whatever.
Yeah.
So knowing the people at Bardstown and knowing what unbelievable attention to detail and what really, wonderful, amazing people they are, I enjoy the products even more.
You're bought in. Where are they located?
They're in Bardstown in Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they were in Tennessee or in Kentucky. So okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'll have to check them out. So
they make some great juice.
All right. Okay. And then kind of final question, which is like I don't know, is anything you'd like to promote? Anything you got going on in your world? You're going to be at a specific event? Do you have anything you want to share with anybody that you're going to be at? The floor is yours.
Yeah. So we're at the Bardstown Bourbon Festival, which is the world's biggest bourbon festival. It happens every year. It's a wonderful event. We've got a Wheel of Fortune. We've got a speakeasy. We're one of the main sponsors there. I believe it's the 5th to the 7th of September. I'm pretty sure, but I think it goes from the Friday to the. Assuming that's the 5th to the 7th, which I'm pretty sure it is. It's just a wonderful place to be. It's at Bardstown in Kentucky, and lots of people who love bourbon get together, have a few drinks, sometimes a few too many, and just enjoy life. Not take life too serious. We're in an industry and it's a business, but at the end of the day, the business we're in is creating a little bit of happiness for people. So it's a wonderful place to be.
Are you going to be there?
Of course. How can I miss it?
Okay. All right. Well, if you're, I'll put links to that below, and then also, links to your website, CaskX.com, I believe, CaskX.com. And if you're, watching this and you're interested in talking with Jeremy and his team about possibly investing in what he's got going on, then, we'll make that happen. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for taking time. I really, really do appreciate it. You make me really jealous of the life you get to live.
It's been an absolute pleasure. No, I really enjoyed talking to you, and have a wonderful day. We'll see you at Bardstown.
Yeah, see you at Bardstown, everybody. Thank you so much. That concludes today's episode, Jeremy. Good to see you. Check out our stuff on the links in the show notes below, and we'll see you in the next episode. All right, everybody, take it easy.